Hi, thanks for coming today. We are going to have a presentation on tree nursery life. We're just gonna get started. Tree nursery life. I spent a summer working at a tree nursery and doing some conservation work utilizing trees. This is just one season, not a professional by any stretch. I've done some research, working on building that repertoire, but just this is just a little something something if you are interested in tree nursery life. All right, we're just going to start with how you build a tree nursery. And so this is how it starts. You have your plot of land, and of course you do your plan and figure it out. Um, but you get fresh soil. Sometimes if you might be able to use the soil that's there, but it might not be as nutritious as you might want for optimum growth, and a lot of additives and things. It might take time and effort to get that stuff sorted out, but you can also just buy soil and use that. Regardless, you want to create a mound of soil. And these are going to be your rows. So this is just one example of the mound here. And you can build this too. You want to plan out how many rows you need for however many trees you want to plant. And you can just essentially rake this up and then kind of mound it to the height that you want it. I think this was maybe 6 inches off the ground and multiple feet wide, maybe 2 feet wide. And I apologize, I don't know the exact numbers on that, but in order to do that, you can kind of use stakes on the corners and have string, like a chalk line or something. You can have string there, and then you can kind of pile the soil up to the edges of the string if it's exactly the 6 inches off, and then the 2 feet apart. So that's kind of how you can measure it out. So that way you know that is where you want that pile of soil, and that's how you build a mound. And then you need to hoe the row, hoe that mound. And so you would take your tool and just drag it through here. And there are different types of hoes. This one, I believe, used a triangular a triangular paddle-esque type shaped um, bottom on that hoe. And then you just dragged it across. And of course, this doesn't need to be perfect because it's just where you would put the seeds, which is the next step. You do want to plant the seeds. And then you would cover that back over with that soil that the hoe displaced. And you then want to compact the soil just so that way the mound does maintain, if you are, overwintering these seeds, you just want to give that structure a little more, um, a little more of a chance to be um, longitudinal, and that compaction will actually try and we'll keep it a little not too compact, but there's this barrel and um, it is hefty, and so it will help to maintain that mound over a period of time. And these were actually planted. It was a direct seed in the fall. So that way they'll have that hibernation period over the winter, and then they can just start growing as soon as spring thaws out and the natural rains come. So it will have that beginning, which is nice. So you want to compact the soil. And then from there, you can apply netting. And this is just placed on top of the mound, just over the corners as well. And then you can use like a yard staple. It's just like a rung almost that you can just stick into the dirt, and that'll hold it in place. And these nets are meant to kind of reduce the amount of weeds that come up. And it can also help keep erosion from happening. So that way the shape of the mound is maintained also, along with that compaction. And then you just wait. And then this is, I'd say, early spring probably. You've got your mounds. These ones, I do not believe these, there were rows, but I don't think that they had the netting, and I don't know that they were compacted. So they are just kind of freestyling it here for over the winter. This is the spring, and you've got a few rows here. And this is another angle of it. You generally leave a little, just a little space in between the rows, and that can be at your discretion as well if you want to be able to mow. It depends on, these are all the seedlings, the little baby, direct from the seed. And so it doesn't necessarily have as much space in between. And that depends on how long you want those seeds to stay in that row. Because if they are going to stay there for the long haul, you might want more space for the roots to grow. And so you might actually end up having more space in between the rows so you can mow in between and allow that nitrogen and that extra nutrients, those extra nutrients to permeate the row and allow for the canopy to establish. So these are all very close together. So they are all little baby seedlings. These are a few mounds also, and they are establishing. And it does look like these ones are kind of fresh after that original compaction. You don't want to compact it more, just because too much compaction will keep the seeds from coming up, and it might keep the roots from being able to establish and kind of get down into that soil and into the ground. So you don't want to compact it too much, just enough so that it does maintain over the winter. And they say, don't step on it, that's our mound. So don't step on it. There are special treatments that you can use for the rows of plants. Like these are actually like window screens, and they are actually over aspen seedlings right here. And that is actually just because the aspen seedlings were so, so small that, and there are a bunch of them, but they are so small that any sort of inclement weather can damage them and can reduce the likelihood of them um, thriving. And so the um, these window screens actually kind of disperse the rain. They take the hit of the rain and reduce its effects. So that is one special treatment you might see in a nursery. And there are a lot of them under there too. So, and over here are some larger ones, but it looks like they need to weed, which is another thing. You would remove these screens to weed. You do weed these rows if any extra plants can act and serve as competition for the plants that you want to grow. And so again, that is at your discretion if you do feel like the competition is actually reducing the growth rates of the trees, and you can watch and see if they're not doing very well, because they can grow a decent amount in one season. Um, Depending on the tree type too, of course, but you do want to weed, and you can weed an entire row and just have the seedlings, or you can just do. I know there was also a strategy of just doing like a small surface area, circle around the primary plant, and then because if you do have some of these greens around, that can also attract beneficial insects. And that is an area of study as well. If you have those bugs, they have shelter for those bugs. Then they can kind of burrow in, they can poop, they can leave that nitrogen, and that's supposed to be good. It can help with, if you have soil compaction, having the bugs there can help with drainage, and it can also help with the nutrient replenishment over the season too. So you also water that nursery, and that is also at your discretion. You can water every few hours or like 3 times a day. I know they say that you want to water um, maybe early in the morning because you want optimum opportunity for it to evaporate. So that way the water doesn't accumulate and then start to have too much moisture. If it does, your plants might start to mold and rot because of that extra moisture. So you want to, a lot of people do suggest watering um, late at night or early morning. But you want optimum growth rates as well. And so throughout the day, if they're babies, and so if they get too hot, then they can also suffer. And so having that water is a natural cooling. And so you'll have to experiment and see what works best for you and with the soil and with the tree type but and there are of course different types of watering systems as well. These are a unique style, but you can also have like those ground tubes if and I apologize, I can't remember the name of them right now, but the irrigation systems to reduce evaporation, but there might be benefits too to having that water on the plants and on the leaves directly too. So, but you do need to water. I know I actually did have plants out during the summer, just this past summer, and I did not do a whole lot of extra watering, and they actually did very well. And that was so I think it really comes down to the hardiness of the plant and how much rain is naturally occurring in that area and a lot the temperatures and but sometimes the natural environment really does kind of have you on that. It'll take care of it, but I can't argue that that was optimum growth rates either for those plants that I kind of honestly neglected. So so water is important and how it is applied, you get to choose. So there you go. Then after the season, you do harvest those trees. And these are kind of more established seedlings where they are getting bigger. You can't, I don't, it's the fall, because they had that optimum timing for the growth season. So, more time in the ground means more nutrients. And more bug life, and it's supposed to be very beneficial to be in the earth. This is equipment that goes underneath the plants, underneath a majority of the roots, where the integral part of the roots that where it just comes directly off that trunk, and it kind of agitates and lifts. So that way, it'll remove that extra soil around the roots, and then you can just take the seedling out of this grate and then hand it off for the next step of the harvest. So it goes underneath, shakes, pulls up the tree, and then it does it again for the next one. So there is equipment there, and there is actually equipment too for the direct seeding. You don't have to do that by hand either. If you would rather be on equipment, it might be a detriment to hold your back in that position. But it depends on how long the rows are and how many rows you have and what seeds you have and how you want to make that choice. But I do apologize. I didn't actually put a picture of that equipment in, and I could have. I have a photo, so that was a missed opportunity on my front. But the technology is there to make this easier. So that's one form of the harvest. These are actually slightly smaller seedlings, and so they have less established root systems. You see, these are a couple feet tall. They're starting to diversify and get actual proper branches. You can't really see these, but these are smaller. They are maybe a few feet, but they don't quite have the same branches established. And this is just an agitator. So this will also scoop underneath the soil and then shake off that soil. And so then you would grab these trees from here, and these are actually trees. You can see some of the root systems draped in between the grates here, or the metal tongs, and that's where you would pick up those trees for transportation. So that is one way to harvest some of the little trees. And if they are larger, you can actually leave them in the ground over the winter. You might, I mean, you could leave these ones in the ground over the winter too, but they might be more prone and more vulnerable to diseases, and it might be less beneficial for longitudinal growth if you were to leave them in the ground. So, and these can, of course, also, be planted elsewhere and, things like that. But you can find these at, at different like arboretums and things for at different sizes for different prices and if they were for sale. And so that does factor into what kind of market there is for what kind of seedlings. Um, I know I ordered some tree seedlings and they were about this size with um, so that was easier to transport long distance in the mail. And they are still establishing in the soil, so they haven't sprouted up yet, and I don't know um, if how they will do, but they are still growing. They have fresh growth every spring. So, yay. But anyway, that is potentially how you would harvest these. Otherwise, you could leave them in the ground and then harvest. Oh no. Oh gosh, there's a really cool photo of another machine that pulls the large trees out of the ground, and it just kind of scoops up underneath the tree and squeezes it and then pulls it out of the ground. It's really phenomenal, and I'm a little disappointed that I didn't put that on this presentation. Maybe I'll look for it after. I don't know that I want you to see my desktop, but it's such a cool photo. So I'll reflect on it. But these are harvesting the little ones, and then you can harvest the large ones too. That might be more of a as needed basis, and these might be just to protect them over the winter. So then you want to transport them. And this is for the little ones to the medium-sized ones. You can just take them out of the ground and you can throw them right in the back of a truck. I think this one might have actually been rigged to spray water, but you do want to spray water on them while they are being transported. You want them moist, just for their own protection. If they dry out too much, they might not grow as well. So you want to keep them healthy. You want them to be moist. And then after you transport them, you will store them. And this is one potential way to store them, just stacking them over the winter. You will want to again have water. And this is a storage cooler, so it keeps some of that cold out, and it is more temperature regulated. And so that way also the water won't freeze. So these do get water throughout the winter. And you can stack some of the bigger trees too, like if you see on the side there. Any questions? Gosh, I really want you to see that machine. I think I have a video of it, but oh no, I don't know. I might have to leave you in suspense. But it is very cool to see those large trees harvested. And that's kind of nursery life, a tree nursery life. Any questions?